Ambassador Hyun-woo floated in his command chair aboard the survey vessel Morning Light. His pale blue skin shimmered under the soft bridge lights as he reviewed the daily reports. The Galactic Entertainment Council had sent his team to monitor primitive worlds in the Outer Rim territories. It was boring work, but someone had to catalog the developing species. Ambassador called Navigator Jin-A from her station. "We are picking up strange signals from the third planet in this system." Hyun-woo turned his large silver eyes toward her. "What kind of signals?" "Electromagnetic transmissions. Very organized patterns. The planet appears to have developed broadcast technology." This was interesting news. Most primitive worlds took thousands of years to develop such capabilities. Hyun-woo pushed himself out of his chair and glided over to Jin-A's station. His species had evolved in low-gravity environments, making movement through their ships smooth and effortless. "Show me what you have found," he said. Jin-A touched her control panel with long, delicate fingers. The main screen displayed a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. White clouds swirled across its surface. 3 small moons orbited nearby. "The signals are coming from all across the planet's surface," Jin-A explained. "Multiple transmission sources. They seem to be broadcasting in many different frequencies." Science Officer So Young joined them at the navigation station. Her violet-colored eyes sparkled with curiosity. "This is very unusual, Ambassador. Most developing worlds have only 1 or 2 broadcast centers when they first discover this technology." Hyun-woo nodded thoughtfully. His people, the Zanari, prized knowledge above all else. They had spent centuries traveling the galaxy to study other civilizations. "Can we decode their transmissions?" "Working on it now," So Young replied. She moved to her science station and began running the alien signals through their translation computers. "The mathematical patterns are quite complex. This species appears to be more advanced than we first thought." Communications Specialist Taemin looked up from his station. "Ambassador, I am receiving hundreds of different transmission streams. These beings are very active broadcasters." "What are they broadcasting about?" Hyun-woo asked. Taemin frowned, which looked strange on his normally cheerful face. "That is the puzzling part. I cannot understand the content yet, but the emotional frequencies are very intense, much stronger than anything we have encountered before." So Young worked at her station for several minutes. The bridge crew waited, in silence as she processed the alien data. Finally, she looked up with a confused expression. "Ambassador, I have managed to decode some visual transmissions, but I do not understand what I am seeing." "Put it on the main screen," Hyun-woo ordered. The display changed to show grainy images from the planet below. The crew watched as strange bipedal creatures moved across the screen. They walked upright on 2 legs and had unusual pale skin colors. But what shocked the Zanari crew was what these creatures were doing. The beings appeared to be running in terror from something. Their faces showed extreme fear. Some were screaming. In the background, dark shapes moved through shadows. The creatures on screen were clearly in great danger. "By the 7 moons," whispered Jin-A. "What kind of world is this?" The image changed to show different creatures in what appeared to be a large dwelling. They were gathered together, but something was hunting them. One by one, the creatures disappeared into darkness. The remaining ones showed signs of panic and desperation. Communications. Officer Dong-hyun joined the group watching the screen. "I have decoded more transmissions. There are thousands of these broadcasts, all showing similar content." "Similar how?" So Young asked. "Creatures in danger. Fear, death, violence. It appears to be their normal way of life." Hyun-woo felt his stomach twist with concern. His people had evolved as peaceful plant eaters. They had never encountered a world where fear and violence were so common. The transmissions continued to play. The crew watched in growing horror as the planet's inhabitants faced one terrifying situation after another. Sometimes they were being chased by other creatures. Sometimes they faced natural disasters. Sometimes they battled against impossible odds. "How do they survive?" asked Jin-A quietly. Research specialist Yun-Ji had been quietly studying the transmissions at her station. She now approached the group with a data pad in her hands. "I have been analyzing their behavioral patterns," she said. "These creatures appear to have incredible survival abilities. Even when faced with the most dangerous situations, many of them continue to fight and struggle." Fight? Hyun-woo had never heard this word used in a positive context. "Yes, Ambassador. They use violence to defend themselves. They create weapons. They work together to overcome threats. It is unlike anything in our databases." The main screen continued to show scenes of the planet's inhabitants facing various dangers. But Yunji was right. These creatures did not simply accept their fate. They fought back with determination that amazed the peaceful Zenari. "What do we call them?" So Young asked. Taemin had been working on linguistic analysis. "They refer to themselves as humans. Their world is called Earth. Humans." Hyun-woo repeated the word slowly. It sounded strange in his mouth. "Ambassador," said Jin-A carefully, "should we report this to the Galactic Council? This species appears very dangerous." Hyun-woo considered this question. The Galactics Council had rules about contacting primitive species, but these humans did not seem primitive. Their technology was advancing rapidly. Their survival instincts were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. "Not yet," he decided. "We need to study them more. Set up a monitoring station at the edge of their solar system. We will observe these humans and learn about them." "Is that safe?" asked So Young. Hyun-woo watched as the humans on screen continued to face their daily struggles with remarkable courage. "We will keep our distance, but we must understand how they live in such a dangerous world. This knowledge could be valuable to the entire galaxy." "Beginning long-range observation protocols," confirmed Jin-A. The crew of Morning Light settled in to begin their study of humanity. None of them realized they were about to make the most terrifying discovery in galactic history. The humans were not just surviving in a world of constant danger, they were creating that danger themselves for entertainment. 3 months had passed since the Morning Light established its hidden monitoring station at the edge of the solar system. Council researcher Dong-hyun sat hunched over his analysis terminal, his pale green fingers dancing across the holographic. Controls. Mountains of data surrounded him in glowing displays. "This is incredible," he muttered to himself as he reviewed another batch of human transmissions. "How do they document everything so perfectly?" Ambassador Hyun-woo approached Dong-hyun's workstation with quiet steps. The researcher had been working without rest for days, completely absorbed in studying the humans. "What have you discovered?" Hyun-woo asked. Dong-hyun looked up with wide, excited eyes. "Ambassador, these humans are the most remarkable species we have ever encountered. They record everything that happens in their daily lives with amazing detail. Show me." Dong-hyun touched his controls and brought up a new transmission on the main display. The screen showed humans running through what appeared to be a large building. Behind them, shambling figures with rotting flesh and empty eyes pursued them relentlessly. "This appears to be a historical record," Dong-hyun explained. "The humans are documenting some kind of plague that turns their people into walking corpses. Notice how calmly they record even the most terrifying events." Navigator Jin-A joined them, carrying a steaming cup of her favorite warm drink. She nearly dropped it when she saw the images on screen. "By the sacred stars," she gasped. "Are those humans eating other humans?" "Yes," Dong-hyun replied matter-of-factly. "This appears to be a common occurrence in their civilization. I have recorded over 300 similar incidents in the past month alone." Hyun-woo felt his blood grow cold. 300 incidents of cannibalism? Oh no, Ambassador, not just cannibalism. That is only one category. Dong Hyun pulled up his organized files. I have also documented mass extinction events, alien invasions, demonic possessions, serial killers, natural disasters, and something they call zombies, which seems to be their term for reanimated corpses. The screen changed to show a human wielding a sharp blade, hunting other humans through a dark forest. The victims ran and hid, but the hunter always found them. One by one, they fell to his weapon. This hunter appears to be unstoppable, observed Jin-A. Yet the other humans continue to resist even when they know they cannot win. Science Officer So Young arrived at the workstation, having heard the conversation from across the bridge. I have been studying their psychological patterns. These humans possess mental strength unlike anything in our databases. How so? Asked Hyunwoo. Watch this, So Young said, taking control of the display. She showed a transmission where a young human female was trapped in a house with some kind of supernatural entity. The entity threw objects through the air, spoke in terrifying voices, and created impossible illusions. Most intelligent species would collapse mentally when faced with supernatural forces, So Young explained. But look at this human's response. The young female on screen was frightened, but she did not give up. She researched the entity, found ways to fight back, and eventually drove it away from her home. Remarkable, whispered Jin-A. She defeated something that exists beyond normal reality. Dong Hyun nodded enthusiastically. This is common behavior among humans. They face impossible situations and somehow find ways to survive. I have documented cases where single humans have defeated entire armies of monsters. The display changed, again showing a muscular human male fighting against creatures with multiple arms and razor-sharp teeth. The human used various weapons and tactics, never backing down despite being outnumbered. Their warrior culture is highly advanced, Dong Hyun continued. They train their fighters to face any threat. Look at this documentation of their combat, training. The screen now showed humans in what appeared to be training facilities. They practiced fighting techniques, tested weapons, and prepared for battle against various types of enemies. They prepare for war constantly, observed So Young. Even their young ones participate in combat preparation. Research specialist Yeonji had been quietly listening while working at her own station. She now approached the group with a concerned expression. I have been analyzing the frequency of these documented events, she said. If these records are accurate, the human homeworld experiences major catastrophic events approximately every few days. Every few days? Hyunwoo could not believe what he was hearing. Sometimes multiple events occur simultaneously, Yoonji continued. Yesterday I recorded transmissions showing humans fighting zombie outbreaks in 3 different locations, while other humans dealt with alien invasions in 2 other regions, and a 3rd group was battling supernatural entities. Communications specialist Tai Min looked up from his station. I have been monitoring their emergency communications channels. They seem to have developed a complex warning system for different types of threats. What kinds of warnings? Asked. Jin-A Taemin consulted his datapad. They have specific alert codes for zombie outbreaks, alien contact, demonic activity, serial killer situations, natural disasters, and something called slasher events, which I do not fully understand. Dong Hyun pulled up more files. The slasher events appear to involve humans who hunt other humans for recreational purposes, usually during their seasonal celebrations. The display showed a masked human stalking teenagers near a lake. The teens seemed aware of the danger but continued with their activities, almost as if they expected to be hunted. Do they enjoy being hunted? Asked So Young, completely puzzled. It appears so, replied Dong Hyun. Many of their historical records show humans deliberately placing themselves in dangerous situations. They seem to find excitement in facing threats. Hyunwoo stared at the screen in disbelief. His peaceful people had never encountered anything like this. The idea of seeking out danger for pleasure was completely foreign to Zanari thinking. "Ambassador," said Yunji quietly, "there is something else. I have been studying their population records." "What about them?" "Despite all these catastrophic events, their population continues to grow. They reproduce faster than they die, even with all the threats they face daily." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. A species that lived in constant danger, yet thrived and multiplied. A people who faced impossible odds and somehow always found ways to survive. "They are not just surviving," whispered Jin-A. "They are prospering in conditions that would destroy our entire civilization." Dong-hyun nodded grimly. "I am beginning to understand why no other species has contacted them. The humans may be too dangerous for normal diplomatic relations." "Ambassador, Hyun-woo made a decision that would change galactic history. Continue monitoring. Document everything. We need to understand exactly what kind of species we are dealing with." None of them realized they were watching fiction, not reality. Engineer Taemin had been working on the human language systems for 6 months. His thin fingers moved quickly across the translation computer as streams of alien data flowed through the processing units. The breakthrough came at exactly 14:32. "Ship time on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I have it," he announced suddenly, his voice cutting through the bridge's normal hum of activity. Ambassador Hyun-woo immediately left his command station. "You have what?" "Complete linguistic translation protocols. I can now understand exactly what the humans are saying during their crisis documentation." The entire crew gathered around Taemin's station. Research specialist Yoon-ji practically vibrated with excitement. For months, they had been interpreting human behavior without understanding their actual words. "Play something," requested So Young. Taemin selected a transmission they had watched many times before. It showed a group of humans trapped in a remote cabin while zombie-like creatures surrounded the building. But now, for the first time, they could understand what the humans were actually saying. "Did you hear that noise outside?" said one of the trapped humans. "Yeah, it sounded like footsteps," replied another. "Maybe we should check it out." The Zanari crew listened in stunned silence as the humans on screen made what seemed like the worst possible decisions. Instead of barricading themselves safely inside, they deliberately went outside to investigate the dangerous sounds. "Why would they do that?" whispered Navigator Jin-A. "They know something deadly is out there." But the most shocking revelation came when the transmission ended. Instead of emergency broadcasts or survivor testimonies, the screen showed something completely unexpected. Humans sitting in comfortable chairs, eating small food items, and making happy sounds. "What is happening now?" asked Dong-hyun. Taemin adjusted the translation settings. The comfortable humans were speaking in relaxed, pleasant tones. "That was so scary," said one human female, but she was smiling. "I loved the part where the zombie grabbed him," said another, laughing. "Want to watch another one?" suggested a third. The Zanari crew stared at the screen in complete horror. These humans had just witnessed their fellow beings torn apart by undead monsters. Now they were discussing it with joy and enthusiasm. They enjoyed it, So Young said in a barely audible voice. Taemin quickly switched to another transmission. This one showed humans being hunted by a masked killer in a dark forest. Again, when the terrifying events ended, the screen showed different. Humans in comfortable settings discussing what they had witnessed with obvious pleasure. "This one was even better than the last slasher movie," said a human male. "The special effects were amazing," added a female. "Movie!" Yoonji grabbed Taemin's arm. "What does that word mean?" Taemin ran the word through his linguistic database. His face went pale as the results appeared. It means artificially created visual entertainment. The bridge fell completely silent. The only sound was the gentle hum of the ship's life support systems. "Entertainment?" Hyunwoo's voice was barely a whisper. They create these scenarios artificially, Taemin continued, his voice shaking. They are not historical records. They are fabricated situations designed to produce fear and terror. But why? Asked Jin-ai. Taemin continued translating human communications about their entertainment preferences. The answers that came back chilled every Zanari to their core. I love horror movies. The scarier the better. That jump scare got me so good. My heart is still racing. Let's find something even more terrifying to watch next. Research specialist Eunji sat down heavily in the nearest chair. They create fear scenarios on purpose, for pleasure. But it gets worse, Taemin said, his voice trembling as he accessed more human data. I have found evidence that they gather in large groups to experience these artificial terror scenarios together. The screen showed images of massive buildings filled with hundreds of humans, all watching the same terrifying events simultaneously. The humans were eating food and drinking beverages while creatures on screen died horrible deaths. Mass psychological conditioning, whispered So Young. They are training their entire population to find pleasure in fear and violence. Dong Hyun had been frantically searching through his months of collected data. This explains everything. All those crisis response protocols I documented, they were not emergency procedures, they were recreational activities. What do you mean? Asked Hyun-woo. Look at this. Dong Hyun displayed his research files. I recorded humans paying currency to enter buildings where they were deliberately frightened by artificial monsters. I thought it was some kind of survival training, but they were doing it for fun. The screen showed laughing humans exiting a dark building, talking excitedly about how scared they had been inside. Some were even planning to return the next day. They pay money to be terrorized, Jin-ae said in disbelief. And not just terror, Yoonji added, pulling up her own research. I found records of humans voluntarily jumping from great heights with only thin cords attached to their bodies. Others deliberately travel to dangerous locations where they might be killed by wild animals or natural disasters. Communications. Specialist Woo Jin had been quietly monitoring human communication channels. Now he spoke up with obvious fear in his voice. Ambassadors, I have been listening to their personal conversations. They actively seek out what they call extreme experiences. They want their entertainment to be as frightening as possible. The crew watched in growing horror as transmission after transmission revealed the same pattern. Humans creating, consuming, and enthusiastically discussing entertainment that would traumatize any normal species. They are not just surviving in a world of constant terror, Hyun-woo said slowly. They are creating that terror themselves. And they love it. So Young accessed the ship's psychological analysis computers. Computer, analyze the psychological profile of a species that voluntarily experiences fear-based stimulation for pleasure. The computer's response appeared on screen. In stark clinical terms, species exhibits extreme psychological deviation. Recommended classification. Class 5 psychological hazard. Contact not advised. Class 5, whispered Yoonji. That is the highest danger rating in galactic protocols. Ambassador Hyun-woo made the most important decision in galactic history. Prepare. An emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. Market Priority Alpha. We need to warn every civilization immediately. What should the message say? Asked Tae-min. Hyun-woo looked at the screen one more time, where humans were cheerfully discussing which terrifying entertainment they wanted to experience next. Tell them we have discovered a species so psychologically dangerous that they transform trauma into recreation. Tell them that direct contact could contaminate entire civilizations with their mental instability. And Earth? Asked Jin-ai. Earth must be declared a forbidden zone. No species in the galaxy is prepared to encounter beings who find joy in fear itself. None of them realized they had just condemned humanity based on watching horror movies. The emergency transmission from Ambassador Hyunwoo reached the Central Galactic Communication Hub at exactly 15:47 Standard Galactic Time. Communications Director Yu Jin had been monitoring routine traffic when the priority alpha signal burst through all normal channels. "By the ancient stars," she whispered as she read the classification code. Priority alpha had not been used in over 300 years. Yu Jin immediately activated the emergency broadcast protocols. Within seconds, her team was preparing to send the most important message in galactic history to every known civilization. "All stations, prepare for galaxy-wide emergency transmission," she announced across the communications center. Senior Operator Hyo-sung looked up from his control station with wide eyes. "Director, what kind of emergency requires galaxy-wide notification?" "The discovery of a Class 5 psychological hazard," Yu Jin replied grimly. "A species so mentally dangerous that contact with them could contaminate entire civilizations." The Communication Center fell silent, except for the hum of massive transmission equipment. Hyo-sung had studied galactic threat classifications in school. Class 5 was theoretical. No species had ever been classified that high. "Begin transmission." "To all sectors," Yu Jin ordered. The message went out instantly through the galactic communication network. Faster than light signals carried the warning to thousands of worlds across 7 major galactic sectors. "Emergency alert, Class 5. Psychological hazard discovered in Sol System, Sector 7. Species designation, humans. All civilizations advised. Of extreme mental contamination risk. Immediate protective protocols recommended." On the crystal world of Harmonia, Council Leader Ye Jin was conducting a peaceful meditation session when the emergency alert reached their receivers. The beautiful crystalline beings rarely experienced anything stronger than gentle concern, so the warning hit their collective consciousness like a shock wave. "Fellow crystals," Ye Jin announced, her voice creating worried harmonics that resonated. "Through the council chamber, we have received disturbing news about a newly discovered species." Elder Crystal Wu Jin, whose form had grown magnificent over centuries of peaceful existence, pulsed with alarm as the human psychological profile was shared among their people. "These beings create deliberate emotional discord for entertainment purposes," Ye Jin explained. "They generate fear frequencies that could shatter our harmonic mental patterns." The assembled crystals resonated with shared horror. Their entire civilization was based on maintaining perfect emotional harmony. The idea of creatures who deliberately created mental chaos was beyond their ability to comprehend. "We must protect our young crystals from any knowledge of these humans," declared Elder Wu Jin. "Even learning about their existence could damage developing harmonic consciousness." "Agreed," replied Ye Jin. "I propose immediate installation of psychic dampening fields around our entire star system. No human transmission must ever reach our world." Meanwhile, in the vast underwater cities of Aquatica Prime, Admiral Minho was reviewing fleet positions when the emergency alert reached his command center. His gills fluttered rapidly as he processed the information about human psychological patterns. "Commander Subin," he called to his second-in-command, "assemble the senior staff immediately. We have a crisis situation." Within minutes, the leadership of the Aquatic Federation had gathered in the main briefing chamber. The assembled officers, with their sleek, water-adapted forms, listened in growing alarm as Minho shared the human threat assessment. "According to this report," Minho explained, "humans voluntarily experience terror-based entertainment. They gather in large groups to watch simulated violence and death." Commander Subin's normally calm demeanor cracked with shock. "Sir, are you saying they enjoy watching others suffer?" "Worse than that," Minho replied. "They pay currency for the privilege. They have entire industries dedicated to creating artificial fear scenarios." The briefing chamber filled with the sound of disturbed water currents as the officers tried to process this information. In their aquatic civilization, violence was so rare that they had no words for many forms of conflict. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked Captain Dong Hyun. "Immediate rerouting of all shipping lanes away from the Sol system," Minho commanded. "No vessel under Aquatic Federation authority is to approach within 50 light-years of human space." "What about our exploration missions in that sector?" "Cancelled. All of them. We cannot risk exposing our people to beings whose minds function in such a corrupted manner." On the gas giant world of Arios, the Atmospheric Council was conducting their weekly weather meditation when the emergency broadcast reached their floating cities. Director Jae-sung's cloudy form condensed with worry as he shared the news with his fellow air beings. "Citizens of the sky," he announced through the wind currents that carried their voices, "we have learned of a species whose psychological development has taken a dangerous path." The gathered atmospheric beings swirled with concern as Jae-sung described human entertainment preferences. Their gaseous forms rippled with disturbance at each new detail. They create artificial scenarios designed to produce fear and stress, Jae-sung explained. They consider psychological trauma to be a form of recreation. Elder Wind Spirit Dongmin, whose form had drifted peacefully through the upper atmosphere for over 4 centuries, compressed into a more solid shape to express his horror. "Such beings could poison our ethereal consciousness," he warned the assembly. "We must ensure no atmospheric current carries their mental contamination to our realm." "I propose immediate adjustment of all weather patterns," suggested meteorologist Yoon-ji. "We will create wind barriers to deflect any signals from human space." The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the entire Atmospheric Council was working to modify their planet's weather systems to create a protective barrier against human psychological influence. In the Silicon Caves of Mechanica, the computer collective was processing the human threat data through their networked consciousness. Central Processor Tae-young analyzed the information with the cold logic that characterized his species. "Analysis complete," he announced to the connected network. "Human psychological patterns represent extreme deviation from normal mental development. Parameters. Secondary processor. Sun-ho accessed the data and shared the results with the collective consciousness. Humans exhibit voluntary exposure to psychological trauma as recreational behavior. This pattern is classified as severe mental dysfunction." "Recommendation?" queried Primary Logic Core Woo Young. "Immediate installation of mental firewalls in all network systems," Tae-young replied. "Human thought patterns must not be allowed to contaminate our logical processes." The Silicon beings worked with mechanical efficiency to protect their civilization. Within an hour, every computer system on their world had been upgraded with protective barriers against human psychological influence. Back at the Central Communication Hub, Director Yoo-jin was receiving confirmation reports from across the galaxy. Every major civilization was responding to the human threat with unprecedented speed and unity. "Status report," she requested from her monitoring team. "Communications." Specialist Hyo-sung consulted his displays. "We have received acknowledgement from all 7 galactic sectors. Emergency protocols are being implemented galaxy-wide. What specific measures are being taken?" Intelligence analyst Soo-bin compiled the incoming reports. "The crystal harmonics are installing psychic barriers. The Aquatic Federation is rerouting all space traffic. The Atmospheric Collective is modifying weather patterns for protection." "Continue monitoring," Yoo-jin ordered. "Any civilization requesting additional information about these humans?" "Negative, Director," Soo-bin replied. "Most species are afraid that learning more details could be psychologically dangerous. Several have classified the human data as too hazardous for general access." Meanwhile, Emergency Response Coordinator Da-eun was organizing support for the Zenari crew that had first discovered the humans. "How are Ambassador Hyun-woo and his team?" Yoo-jin asked. "They are receiving intensive psychological treatment," Dae-yoon reported. "The trauma of observing human entertainment patterns has severely affected their mental stability." "Prognosis?" The medical team estimates they will need years of therapy to recover from exposure to human psychological dysfunction. Yujin shook her head sadly. The brave Zanari explorers had paid a terrible price for their discovery. As reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy, one pattern became clear. Every single civilization was treating the human threat with maximum seriousness. Trade routes were being permanently altered. Scientific expeditions were being canceled. Cultural programs were being reviewed for any potential human influence. Director, reported senior analyst Jin Ai, we are receiving requests for historical analysis. Several civilizations want to know if humans have contacted other species before. What did the research show? Fortunately, humans appear to have developed their psychological dysfunction in isolation. No other species has reported contact with beings matching their psychological profile. That is fortunate indeed, Yujin agreed. Imagine the damage they could have caused if they had spread their mental contamination to other worlds. Communications specialist Wu Jin looked up from his station. Director, we are getting reports that some younger members of various civilizations are asking questions about these humans. What kind of questions? Curiosity about how any species could find pleasure in fear-based experiences. Some are wondering if they could safely observe human entertainment from a distance. Yu Jin's expression grew stern. Send immediate warnings to all educational institutions. No young beings are to be exposed to information about human psychological patterns. The risk of mental contamination is too severe. Message transmitted, Director. As the Galactic Day progressed, the scope of the protective measures continued to expand. Entire sectors of space were being declared off-limits. Universities were canceling psychology courses that might accidentally lead to discussions of human mental patterns. Final report, Yujin requested as the emergency response phase concluded. Hyo Sung compiled the data from across the galaxy. Total civilizations notified, 12,847. Emergency protocols activated, 100%. Protective measures implemented, maximum level across all sectors. Yujin looked at the galactic display, where the Sol system now appeared as a bright red warning zone surrounded by safety perimeters extending in all directions. Excellent work, everyone, she announced to her team. We may have just prevented the most dangerous psychological contamination event in galactic history. The irony was complete. Humanity had become the galaxy's most feared species simply because they enjoyed watching scary movies. But the galaxy was safe, protected from the terrible knowledge that Earth's most dangerous inhabitants were just people who liked a good horror film. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such unanimous agreement. Representatives from 847 different civilizations filled the massive chamber, their various forms creating a spectacular display of galactic diversity. But today, every single being shared the same expression of concern and determination. High Chancellor Hyun Soo called the emergency session to order. His ancient form, evolved from crystalline beings, resonated with the gravity of the situation as he addressed the assembly. Fellow representatives, his voice echoed through translation devices in hundreds of languages. We are gathered to address the most serious threat to galactic psychological safety in our recorded history. Security Chief Wu Jin stood at the central podium, her metallic form reflecting the chamber's lights as she presented the evidence. Behind her, massive screens displayed the shocking data collected by the Zanari expedition. The species known as humans have been observed engaging in voluntary psychological trauma for entertainment purposes, she announced. They create and consume fear-based content with enthusiasm that defies all known patterns of healthy mental development. A ripple of disturbed sounds moved through the assembly as representatives from various worlds shared their horror at this revelation. The evidence is overwhelming, Wu Jin continued, displaying images of humans enjoying horror entertainment. They gather in groups to experience simulated terror. They pay currency to be frightened by artificial monsters. They compete in activities designed to produce fear and adrenaline. Ambassador Ye Jin of the Peaceful Botanical Collective raised one of her leafy appendages. Security Chief, are we certain these are not military training exercises? Negative. Ambassador, our linguistic analysis confirms these are recreational activities. Humans describe them using words that translate to fun, exciting, and entertaining. The assembly erupted in shocked whispers and concerned harmonics. Cultural, Specialist Min Su from the Empathic Collective stood to address the chamber. High Chancellor, my people have attempted to analyze human psychological patterns through our emotional sensing capabilities. The results are disturbing beyond description. Please elaborate, requested Hyun Su. When humans engage with their fear-based entertainment, they experience what can only be described as pleasure responses. Their brain chemistry actually rewards them for experiencing terror. This is completely contrary to every known pattern of healthy psychological development. Representative Tae Young from the logic-based Silicon Confederation accessed his data, cores before speaking. Our computational analysis indicates that exposure to human psychological patterns could create permanent damage to species with normal fear responses. The risk of mental contamination is classified as extreme. What do you recommend? Asked the High Chancellor. Complete isolation, Tae Young replied without hesitation. No civilization should risk contact with beings whose minds function in such a fundamentally corrupted manner. Diplomatic Corps leader Sun Ho stood to present the formal recommendation. His gaseous form swirled with serious intent as he addressed the assembly. Distinguished representatives, the Diplomatic Corps has prepared a formal proposal for dealing with the human threat. We recommend immediate implementation of Protocol Omega, absolute quarantine. The chamber fell silent. Protocol Omega had never been used in galactic history. It was reserved for threats so dangerous that even knowledge of their existence was considered hazardous. The proposal is as follows, Sun Ho continued. First, the Sol system containing Earth shall be designated a Class 5 Forbidden Zone. Second, all star charts will be modified to remove references to the system's location. Third, any vessel accidentally approaching the quarantine boundary will be intercepted and its crew subjected to psychological evaluation. What about the humans themselves? Asked Ambassador Yun Ha from the Peaceful Aquatic Federation. They will be left completely alone, replied Sun Ho. No contact, no observation, no communication of any kind. We cannot risk exposing any galactic citizen to their psychological influence. Technical specialist Jae Min presented the proposed quarantine procedures. We will establish automated warning beacons at a safe distance from their system. The beacons will broadcast warnings in all galactic languages, informing travelers that they are approaching a psychological hazard zone. How close can the beacons be placed? Asked Representative Woo Young from the Energy Being Collective. Our psychologists recommend a minimum distance of 50 light-years, Jae-min replied. Any closer, and there is risk that human broadcast signals could contaminate the beacon programming with their corrupted entertainment content. Medical Chief Da-min stood to address health concerns. The Medical Council has reviewed all available data on human psychology. We strongly recommend that any being who has been exposed to human entertainment transmissions receive immediate psychological counseling. What about the Zanari crew that discovered them? Asked the High Chancellor. They are currently undergoing intensive therapy to recover from the trauma of observing human psychological patterns. Early reports suggest they will need years of treatment to fully process what they have witnessed. The vote was called. One by one, every single representative in the assembly cast their ballot. The result was unprecedented in galactic history, 847 civilizations in complete agreement. The motion passes unanimously, announced High Chancellor Hyun Su. Earth and the Sol system are hereby declared an absolute forbidden zone under Protocol Omega. Within hours, the quarantine was being implemented. Automated beacon ships launched from staging areas across the galaxy, carrying warnings to be placed around the human system. Fleet Commander Jin Woo oversaw the beacon deployment from his flagship. All warning beacons are now in position, he reported. The quarantine zone is fully established. The beacons broadcast their warnings continuously in every known galactic language. Warning: psychological hazard zone. The system beyond this point contains beings whose mental patterns are dangerous to all known forms of consciousness. Approach is forbidden. Contact with inhabitants will result in permanent psychological damage. Turn back immediately. Cultural preservation specialist Su Jin was tasked with modifying all existing galactic databases. I am removing all references to the Sol system from navigation charts, trade route databases, and cultural studies materials, she reported. What about historical records? Asked her supervisor. All files relating to human discovery have been classified at the highest security level. Only the Galactic Council's Emergency Committee will have access to this information. Educational Administrator Dong Su implemented new protocols for all galactic schools and learning institutions. We are issuing strict guidelines about psychological education, he announced. No institution is permitted to discuss the existence of beings who find pleasure in fear-based experiences. What if students ask about the Forbidden Zone? Asked a concerned teacher. They are to be told only that it contains dangerous phenomena that could harm their mental development. No specific details about humans are to be shared. As the quarantine took effect, the galaxy's greatest scholars began the process of forgetting. Libraries sealed away research materials. Universities canceled comparative psychology courses that might accidentally lead to questions about human mental patterns. Communication networks were updated with automatic filters to block any signals that might originate from the human system. Even the possibility of accidental exposure to human entertainment was considered too dangerous to risk. Within 6 months, the Sol system had become the galaxy's most feared location. Even its name was gradually being erased from common knowledge, replaced only with the designation Absolute Forbidden Zone Omega. Trade routes were permanently rerouted. Exploration missions avoided entire sectors of space just to ensure they would never accidentally approach the human system. The quarantine is complete, reported High Chancellor Hyun-Soo to the Galactic Council. The humans are now completely isolated from all galactic civilization, and we are safe from their psychological influence? Asked Security Chief Wu Jin. As safe as we can be, the High Chancellor replied. No being in the galaxy will ever again risk exposure to creatures who transform terror into entertainment. On Earth, completely unaware of their new status as the galaxy's most feared species, humans continued to enjoy their horror movies, never knowing they had accidentally terrified an entire galaxy into hiding from them. Filmmaker Ji-hoon sat in his comfortable editing chair, putting the finishing touches on his latest horror movie. The small studio apartment in Seoul was cluttered with movie posters, script pages, and empty coffee cups. He had been working for 3 months on what he hoped would be his breakthrough film. Perfect, he muttered to himself as he added the final sound effect. The scene showed a monster jumping out at the main character, complete with dramatic music and carefully timed surprise elements. His friend and fellow filmmaker Min Jae knocked on the door before entering with a bag of takeout food. How is the movie coming along? Min Jae asked, setting down containers of Korean fried chicken and rice. I think this might be my best work yet, Ji-hoon replied, saving his project file. The jump scares are really effective, and I managed to build genuine tension throughout the whole story. What is it about? A group of college students who get trapped in an abandoned hospital with some kind of supernatural entity. Classic setup, but I think I found some new ways to make it genuinely frightening. Min Jae opened the food containers and handed chopsticks to his friend. Are you planning to submit it to the Busan International Film Festival? Already sent the application, Ji-hoon confirmed. The horror genre is really popular right now. Audiences love being scared in a safe environment. Neither of them knew that their casual conversation about frightening audiences would have caused panic attacks among 847 different alien civilizations. Meanwhile, across the city, movie critic Da-Yun was finishing her review of the latest Hollywood horror release. She typed quickly on her laptop, trying to meet her deadline for the entertainment magazine. Director Park's newest thriller succeeds in creating genuine psychological tension, she wrote. The film's ability to make audiences question reality alongside the protagonist demonstrates masterful storytelling. Horror fans will find plenty to love in this expertly crafted nightmare. She paused to consider her rating. The movie had made her jump several times and kept her thinking about it for days afterward. Those were always signs of quality horror. Filmmaking? 4 out of 5 stars, she decided, typing the final score. A must-see for anyone who enjoys being thoroughly terrified. Da-Yun had no idea that her positive review of human fear entertainment would have been classified as dangerous propaganda by every major galactic civilization. At a movie theater in downtown Seoul, teenagers Soo Young and Hyo Jin were buying tickets for the evening horror movie screening. "I heard this one is really scary," Soo Young said excitedly as they approached the concession stand. "Good," replied Hyo Jin, purchasing a large container of popcorn. "The last movie we saw barely made me flinch. I want something that will actually frighten me." They joined a line of other young people, all eager to experience artificial terror in the safety of a movie theater. The conversations around them were filled with anticipation about being scared. "My friend saw it last week and said she could not sleep afterward," said one girl to her companion. "Perfect," the companion replied with a grin. The theater manager, Dong Hyun, was pleased to see another sold-out horror movie screening. These films always drew big crowds, especially on weekend nights. He had been working in theaters for 15 years and had noticed that audiences seemed to crave increasingly intense, scary experiences. "People love being frightened," he mentioned to his assistant manager while counting ticket sales. "The more intense the movie, the better they seem to like it." His assistant, Tai Jun, nodded in agreement. "I never understand it myself. Why do people pay money to be scared?" "Because it is fun," Dong Hyun explained. "They get to experience danger and fear without any real risk. It is like a roller coaster for emotions." Unknown to them, their innocent conversation about human entertainment preferences would have required immediate psychological intervention if overheard by any galactic species. In a gaming cafe in Gangnam, a group of friends were playing the latest survival horror video game. The players, led by enthusiastic gamer Woo Jin, were navigating their characters through a haunted mansion filled with monsters and jump scares. "Behind you!" shouted his friend Yu Jin as a digital monster appeared on screen. "I see it," Woo Jin replied, frantically pressing buttons to make his character fight the creature. "This game has amazing graphics. The monsters look so realistic." "That is what makes it so scary," added their friend Jae Sung. "I love games that make my heart race." The group continued playing for hours, laughing and shouting with excitement every time something frightening happened in the game. They were having the time of their lives being digitally terrorized by artificial monsters. Their enthusiasm for fear-based entertainment would have caused immediate evacuation of several alien star systems. At Seoul National University, psychology, Professor Yun-Soo was teaching a class about human emotional responses to entertainment. "Horror movies provide a unique psychological experience," she explained to her students. "They allow us to safely explore our fear responses in a controlled environment." Student Sun Woo raised his hand. "Professor, why do humans seem to be the only species that enjoys being scared?" "That is an interesting question," Professor Yun-Soo replied. "As far as we know, humans may be unique in our ability to transform negative emotions like fear into positive experiences like entertainment. Is that why horror is such a popular genre worldwide?" "Exactly. Humans have an unusual psychological resilience that allows us to find pleasure in experiences that might be traumatic for other species, if any existed." The irony of her statement was lost on everyone in the classroom. She had accidentally described exactly why humanity was now considered the most dangerous psychological threat in galactic history. Meanwhile, 50 light-years from Earth, Galactic Council intern Jae Sung was performing routine maintenance on one of the automated warning beacons surrounding the human quarantine zone. Warning beacon Alpha 7 is functioning normally, he reported to his supervisor through the communication system. Good, came the reply. Remember, do not attempt to access any signals from inside the quarantine zone. Even accidental exposure to human entertainment could cause permanent psychological damage. Jae Sung shuddered at the thought. He had read classified reports about the beings inside the forbidden zone. Creatures so mentally corrupted that they created fear-based content for recreational purposes. I still cannot believe such beings exist, he said. Try not to think about it, his supervisor advised. The psychological analysis teams are still recovering from studying their behavior patterns. As Jae Sung completed his maintenance work, he noticed that the beacon was detecting some kind of transmission from within the quarantine zone. His curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to take just a quick look at what the humans were broadcasting. The transmission showed what appeared to be a human entertainment program. A young human female was being chased through a dark building by something with glowing eyes and sharp teeth. She was clearly terrified, but somehow she kept fighting back against the creature. Jae Sung watched in fascination as the human female used clever tactics to defeat the monster. When the transmission ended, he noticed something strange happening to his own thought patterns. That was actually rather exciting, he found himself thinking. I wonder what happens next in their story. The realization that he was beginning to understand human entertainment psychology sent him into immediate panic. He quickly activated emergency protocols and called for psychological assistance. Within hours, the incident had been reported to the highest levels of galactic security. Emergency counseling teams were dispatched to treat Jae Sung for exposure to human psychological patterns. This proves how dangerous these humans are, reported Security Chief Woo Jin to the Galactic Council. Even our trained personnel are susceptible to their corrupted thinking patterns. Increase the quarantine zone by another 10 light-years, ordered High Chancellor Hyun-soo. We cannot risk any further exposure incidents. Back on Earth, completely unaware that his horror movie had just caused a galactic security alert, filmmaker Ji-hoon was celebrating the successful premiere of his latest film. The audience loved it, he told his friend Min-jae over drinks. They screamed at all the right moments and gave it a standing ovation. Congratulations, Min-jae replied. Nothing makes a horror director happier than terrifying people. They clinked glasses in celebration, never knowing that their success had just reinforced humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most feared species. Meanwhile, the automated warning beacons continued their constant broadcasts, ensuring that no alien civilization would ever accidentally discover that humans were actually just peaceful beings who happened to enjoy scary movies. The galaxy remained safe from the terrible knowledge that Earth's most dangerous inhabitants were nothing more than creative people who liked to tell frightening stories for entertainment, and humanity continued their daily lives, completely unaware that they had become cosmic legends of psychological terror simply by enjoying the thrill of a good scare.